And I'd like to introduce the moderator for this panel, Margaret Mercado. She's been working in the cultural sector here in Montreal for the last 12 years, and she's currently the executive director of the RIDM Festival, and Doc Circuit is part of that as well. So this is Mara.
Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to the Re-engendering the Arts and Industry Institutional Action Panel. So I'm very happy to be here today. So when Patty sent us the reading material to prepare this panel, there was a quote in there that said, women pay the same taxes as men, so if it's a government-funded thing, you should have a quota. You should reflect the population. It's a quote from Gudrun Gut. And you know, you think easy, but if it was that easy, I guess we wouldn't be here today. And it really caught my attention because as a head of a festival, it's something that you always have in mind. You know, how does the team and the content and the whole festival reflects the population, represents reality. And it's something that you have to take on every day and that you really have to commit to. It's something that you have to build into the DNA of your organization. And this is what this panel is going to look at and is going to be about. How, as institutions and organizations, can we build change from within? A change that goes beyond policy and quotas, and how do we make sure that we rethink and rebuild the system to go or move towards something that is inclusive and sustainable and that the next generation can build on. So all of these questions are pressing, and I'm really pleased to have today a panel of professionals who are not only thinking about this, but that are also putting their money where their mouth is, literally, by building new programs and policies. So in the next hour, we'll examine their challenges, the actions taken, and their results. Each of them will do a short presentation, and then we'll gather back and break into discussion. And we'd really like this to be a conversation, so I know some of you sat at the back because you want to see maybe something else, but come up to the front and don't hesitate to put your hand up and ask some questions in the second part. We really want this to be an exchange between the panel and you guys in the room. So I'm just going to introduce all of them quickly. Maybe you can wave from where you are. So we have Jessica Partridge from PRS Foundation, UK. We have Louis-Richard Tremblay from the National Film Board of Canada, the Interactive Department. We have Sylvia Lunanazzi from British Council, The Americas, is that it? Yes, okay. And Nathalie Maillet from the Conseil des Arts de Montréal, and Evelyn Cream from Factor Canada. And without further ado, let's start with you, Jessica. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. So, obviously, Keychange is kind of why we're all here and the starting point for that. So, I wanted to give everyone a bit of a background on where that came from. Sorry, this isn't working. No. That's weird. Oh. It worked when I did it in the practice. I'll just do it by hand. It's fine. So, this whole idea was born from actually some of our other funds. So, the PRS Foundation is a charity based in the UK. It's related to the Performance Rights Society, which is like SOCAN here, I believe. And we operate independently to fund musicians and creators and some organizations to achieve new things. And as you can see here, we found at the beginning that actually not very many women were applying even to our funds. And so it took our director, our CEO, looking at why that was, where the problems were, and what funds were getting more applications from women. And she set up a new fund called Women Make Music. We recently had the 5-year anniversary of this, and you'll see more results from that later, but it has been an incredibly effective thing. And because of how effective that has been, Vanessa kind of thought forward about how we can make this even more effective, what areas we can go into, and how we can collaborate on a European scale. And luckily, we are able to include Canada in that. But this has been, yeah, an incredible journey, and this is where Keychange came from, the success of the Women Make Music Fund. So, and obviously, as I mentioned earlier, this is also developed into a worldwide campaign for gender equality at festivals, with over 120 festivals signed up now. So at the core of Keychange, we have a talent development network, which is 60 women across Europe, 10 from 6 different countries. All of our partner festivals are based in these countries. And we invest in these women, 7 of whom are here at the moment, and take them to different festivals, giving them opportunities to speak on panels and also to perform at festivals. They're half professionals and half musicians. And then we have other opportunities for them, like funding for new ideas and projects, which is called an innovation fund, which is there to kind of instigate cross-border collaboration. They can't just do it within one country. They have to work with each other, build on ideas, and even if it's only a little bit of money, try something new, basically. So yeah, this is a selection of 10 of our participants, and you can see more, you can see them all and find out about what they do in the booklet that's been around. We'll get some more of those out tomorrow as well. So, as I explained earlier, the festival pledge has developed from this, and the idea behind it is that it's not just about doing it tomorrow. Like, we've had a lot of people come to us and say, why isn't it 50-50 by next year? But we want to create long-term sustainable change, and this is also, it's coming from the festivals themselves. It's about realistic targets and building processes which mean that long-term this change will count. So whether that's them looking at the ways that they're getting their information, changing their information feeds so they're allowed, like, given the opportunity to really change what they're doing long-term, or whether that's building acts from the very lowest levels to being headliners in 5 years. Whatever that progression is, we want to see that continuing. So yeah, more than 120 festivals, and it's growing all of the time, so it's really exciting. And this is Alexander Schultz from Reeperbahn, and he was actually the one who came up with the idea of the festival pledge. He was really adamant that we needed to do more, and despite even some of the bookers on his team kind of pushing against it, he insisted that this is something we needed to do. So Alex, and a lovely quote about the fact that we do need to recognize that there are barriers, and it's not just an imagined thing. It's actually real, and we can do something about it. So to give you a bit more background on why and the Women Make Music Fund, after 5 years of doing this fund, we kind of evaluated, we asked questions of the grantees and tried to find out why these things make a difference and how they're making a difference. So this lovely infographic will give you a bit more information about that. But we really saw in every area it was helpful. It wasn't just about them saying that, yeah, I could afford to do something, which is obviously a base level, really important thing. But it was also about confidence and creativity, and they were given the opportunity to feel like they could do it, and were encouraged to do it separately and away from, I don't know what I'm trying to say away from, but in a new space, in a safe space. And this really, really was effective. I mean, the figures speak for themselves, even in business development and actual building their careers, 82% of them securing new bookings and things like that. It has been incredibly effective. And obviously, these are images which have gone around the internet 100 times over, but they really show the need for why we need to do this, why it makes a difference. And it was really interesting to see this morning, in fact, the figures, how they hadn't changed from 2012 to 2017, how there was basically no difference in the number of women booked at these festivals that they were examining. And this is exactly what we found as well. So this is why it's needed and where we're trying to change it. We have a lot of really amazing ambassadors for this program, and thanks to a lot of our partners from, Robin to, God, Shirley Manson, loads of different incredible women, even Tony Visconti supporting what we do. And this is Nadine Shah. She's one of our Keychange ambassadors and artists, and she really understands the need for what it is we're doing. So the results so far, we have seen huge effects so far, mostly in the media. I think that it's quite an attention-grabbing headline when you have over 100 festivals signing up to really tackle gender balance. So that has been incredible. We've had a lot of events, being obviously all around the world with the group that we have, the Keychange Network, but also we're invited to plenty of other events to talk about what it is we're doing. And this is a selection of those. It's been an incredible journey. And this is just a snapshot of some of the press that we've had. And obviously it's not all been overwhelmingly positive, but I feel like over the time we've managed to really work out our responses to the criticisms, the questions, and some of the more difficult observations, which are completely valid, but yeah. As you can see, there are plenty of people very much on our side as well. And a little shout out to MUTEC from Resident Advisor at the bottom there. This is a selection of our associate festivals. Again, they're from all over the world, South America, to India, to throughout Europe, of course. And some wonderful press quotes as well. So if you want to get more involved, if you want to find out more about what we're doing, again, it's a worldwide movement, so it doesn't matter where you're based, it doesn't matter what you do, we are always looking for people to support and even just follow us. And here's a section of our partners already. So yeah, we've been really lucky in the fact that we've had incredible sponsors, incredible supporters, like festivals like MUTEC, and we're really excited to see what the future holds for it. Thanks.
Hi, and now I'm going to call Louis-Richard Tremblay from the National Film Board of Canada. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Just going to let this run before going at it. Okay, so okay, that's fine. So I'm a producer in the interactive studio based in Montreal. The NFB has 9 studios spread out in 11 different cities all through Canada. We're 100% financed by the Canadian federal government. The total allocation every year is around like 70 million, covering all the operations of the NFB. All over Canada. So within each of those 9 studios, there's about 28 producers and executive producers altogether. And basically when a project and a team gets the go, a producer has to do something or to allow it to happen at some point or another. That's not, okay. So in 2016, we decided to really pledge for a 50-50 objective. So by 2019, 50% of all NFB production will be directed by women. So that was announced in 2016. Some nuances. because within those 9 studios, some do film, some do animation film, and I'm from the interactive studio. So there are some difference in the way we decided to go at it, just because of the nature of the medium we have to work with, being film, the different techniques animation film calls to happen, and interactive medium is wide open. So for us, it's by 2020, so we have 1 more year to reach that 50-50 in key creative position. I'm missing like lots of slides. Anyway, so I'm gonna go, like the slides I'm missing were before this one. So anyway, the studio based in Montreal, it's not a creation studio, it's really a production studio. So the way we work is we over a year maybe produce, we have 15 to 18 projects in production. That's pretty much the case for every studio if you do your math. And we release maybe 10. Overall, 100 projects get to the public over a year at the NFB. In the interactive studio, one thing we believe in, I should say, is we call ourselves techno-agnostic. So that brings another layer, being able to reach that 50% objective. The reason for that is that every technology brings a new set of skills, a new set of people around to create a team. So to us, this is a big challenge, because we don't only have to answer for, in the film, there's 8 key creation roles that were identified as having to meet those objectives of 50-50. So far, it's going very well. For the directors, there's no equivalent in the director and the DOP. But for other department, it's really like low score. So for directors, we're at 45, 46, 47. For the first year, the second year, so it's slowly like taking place, and it's happening, not without its challenge, but it is happening. In some of the department, like music composition, we're at 4%. So why is it that low? I don't know. Sometimes one challenge we find is that when you have, for instance, you choose to work with one director. Usually the director comes with its own team, with its own set of people and talent that they've built confidence with over the year. And that's a really difficult challenge for us, producer, trying to convince a director to get them to understand and to accept the reality we want to push forward and the change we want to bring to the industry. So if I go back now to the interactive studio, one thing we really early on decided to do, because of that like technology aspect of what we do, we very rapidly react to see what was the ground made of. So who were going into the different programs in the university? Who are the people actually making digital creation at that level? And then within the different agency we work with, usually when over, like I was saying, 15 projects. So each of those projects, most of the time, are created with different agencies. So like 15 different teams that you have to bring together, that you have to make sure that they understand each other, they have a common understanding of the objectives of the creative. And one of the thing we believe in also is that creation for us is something very collaborative, even in this decision making. And we think we differentiate ourselves in a way where the final cut is not necessarily the decision of the director, but could be of the technologist within the team, because he's the one holding the skills to push forward the creation or the idea of creation the team has brought together. So those are the common challenge we find on the ground. So once we've decided to go make sure we had a common understanding of, okay, who are the creators, how many of them are out there, if we want to reach this objective, what do we have to do? So two initiatives that were created in 2017, 2016, 2017, is we put together a workshop together with MUTEC, Quartier des Spectacles, bringing 100% creative, women creative to a VR workshop, internationally wise. And at building this workshop, all the key questions were like, came very fast to me when we decided to go 100%, like the usual that you understand. Will the quality be lesser? Will we find those people? Or is there enough people working? And the minute you force it in, suddenly, just because you force yourself to look elsewhere, suddenly the list of people was just amazing. And the experience was great. So we're moving along that line still today. The other initiative we put together is really to, we call it startup, Jeune Pousse in French, which is a school, like an internship project where we host 8 persons from different fields from the university level and bring them together to create one project in 8 weeks. 50-50, and this year, second year, sorry, we had 100%, no, there was one guy, but like there was one guy. But it was really interesting. And what it taught us is, I think, because it was a majority, this subject that came out of their desire to do something together brought a new sensibility, and I'm pretty sure I'm 100% sure actually, that if it had been a mixed team or a male majority, that subject would have never come out, which is our relation to the clitoris. It's the same thing. Yeah, so it's coming out soon in October. So and this is the kind of thing that's more interesting for us. It's not only about the gender, but it's the perspective that changes when you rearrange the people. So through those different initiatives, I'm gonna leave you with like 3 basic learning at the moment, which I think reflects pretty much all the different discussion I may have had within the NFB and outside with different partners and agency and creators. It's really to act now. It is clearly a problem, especially if you come with 100% finance, federal money or public money. I think it's something that needs to happen. You need to make sure all different perspective of your society is there, making a decision and key decision at many time. Share. Very important. Like very early on in the process, all studios pair with one partner or 2 or 3 or even 5 to 6 partner to make sure that all the knowledge and the information that was gathered was shared through the whole industry. And this is very key, I think, to some of the success we're meeting right now. One of the best initiative was a common Banque de Talent, which is a talent base, where if you're a woman, we not only give you the address to come, but there's also lots of initiative to make sure that every woman that has the smallest interest knows that she's welcome in our project, in our team, and we found that effort is very important to convert into like real people engaging themselves with us. And the other thing, and I think it was brought up, is listen, because it's a huge problem with complex ramification, and you have to go at it in a very open and humble way, because it transcends the industry. It's a societal problematic. So this is the way we go at it. Most people who deal with it at the NFB is just iteration and iteration, which is really interactive. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Louis Richard. Now I'll call Sylvia Lunati from British Council. I have so many microphones. That's not the first one. Can we go back? All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks again. I am back on stage. This time I'm trying to be a little bit more relaxed and a bit more spontaneous about my presentation. What I wanted to bring today is a perspective from within an organization that is so big and spread across the world, and bring this perspective of how to create a culture in such a large organization that trickles down to how we shape the programmings and the projects that we support across the world. So what I put together here today was a combination of these strategies that we have within the British Council, and also illustrating with a few of the projects that we have that have more to do with Amplify and Keychange and the context of gender parity. So again, I had to reiterate what the British Council is, because there's a lot of confusion in what this is in terms of the communication. So we are an international organization for cultural relations and education opportunities. And that means that we have, like I said earlier, we have operations in over 100 countries around the world. And we have about our programs and projects reach more than 75 million people directly, and over 750 million indirectly through our platforms, digital platforms, and our events. So it's obviously that we have a huge impact on the audiences that we have. And so we need to be really careful how we shape these projects and how we present ourselves to it. So what I understood, I'm with the British Council for almost 3 years now. From the moment that you apply for a job, you already get exposed to this culture of what we call the equality, diversity, and inclusion strategy. This was something that was implemented in 2002 and is constantly being revised. And so the last revision on it was in 2014. So for short, we call it EDI, and when we say diversity, that means equality, diversity, and inclusion strategy. And so this is truly integral to the British Council brand, our reputation, success, and our cultural relations impact. So I don't want to go reading through all this, but I think this panel here was exactly about the seriousness of how organizations really put the thought into how they can actively and practically put awards into action. So these, which could look like very cumbersome, almost like corporate language, is something that we have to remind ourselves constantly within the British Council to make sure we are monitoring ourselves and how we approach the people that we work with, the people that we relate to, and our partners, and so on. So in short, if you were to pick one of these, like I said, from the moment that you're applying for a job to the moment that you're actually working with, producing in a particular project, we have to always constantly monitor and then make sure that we draw on the rich diversity of the UK in our workforce, our partners, friends, our contacts, and our activities. That really means that we have a true appreciation of diverse people and cultures. So what does that mean? That means it helps translate our values into action. We nurture a culture that values the rich variety of the backgrounds and experiences of our staff and our partners and contacts, which is really what stands us apart on the basis of dignity and respect. So
it also demonstrates a respect for and a knowledge of the cultures in which we operate, and we had to remember over 100 countries. It's really something that's overwhelming. So I'm here representing today the Americas region, and so there's a lot more to be said about the other regions that we work with, which is 7 total. So we really encourage ways of working based on compassion, empathy, mutual benefit, as well as what we have in common and what joins us as global citizens instead of what makes us different. And we also draw on overarching international instruments, things that are being discussed in different realms that also help us build and shape our programs. So the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the UNESCO Convention on Cultural Diversity. So what's the approach? So we have 3 main strands. Informing our EDI strategy, so business, ethical, and legal. So these areas are just a few of the key aspects that we base ourselves on. And again, just as a reminder, we have in the British Council 4 different business units. So we have English and exams, and we have civil society, and we have the arts. And today I'm here representing the arts sector. So within that, but I mean, all of this EDI applies to all of those. But for us, we have then age, disability, ethnicity, race, gender, religion, belief, sexual orientation, and work-life balance. So that's just a guideline. It doesn't mean that we can include, or some, we approach different aspects of it. So to illustrate then what we do in the Americas region within the arts sector, and we have also an art strategy that we have to align with this EDI strategy. So we have 5 pillars that we based our work on. The first one then is basically sharing UK art with the world. And that alone is not easy because then again, what art are you going to share with the world? Who are these artists? How do you select those? What are the criteria for that? That's the first pillar. The second one is arts for social change. So then you're talking about extending safe spaces for culture and creative inspiration, exploration and exchange, among other things. And then we have policy and research, another aspect of the pillars that we support, and then fostering collaborations and networks and capacity building. So those 5 pillars align with the EDI strategy, something that we can begin to put into your projects on a daily basis, and then the actual work that we do within local partners, some national partners, and internationally. So it's something that spans, from micro communities to something that's like global campaigns. So the first project that I wanted to bring as an example, of course, would be Amplify. So this program was led by Canada and joined then by Mexico, Argentina, and Venezuela. So what it does is it offers a combination of activities to support women-identified artists that they have yet to get wider recognition on the international scene, as well as offering skills training, bringing an existing vibrant self-taught community to a professional level. So what it seeks to do is to increase gender parity in digital arts and reach festival directors and programmers from the region and the UK, as well as policymakers, art and the arts councils, universities and students. And as I mentioned earlier, so it's Amplify is led by British Council, MUTAC, Somerset House Studios, with the support of Canada Council for the Arts. So that's the first example that we have. And so we have then on our flyer the group of 20 artists that were actually brought together from this cohort of artists was brought together with our partners. So we each have our say in, and selecting these artists from each of the countries that I mentioned earlier. And so that's creating space for the discussion to happen, which is something maybe I should say in reverse of being a grassroots movement. These artists were actually nominated by these partners as people that could be facilitators, or they could exchange ideas, and they were willing to share ideas with each other and create this connection as a starting point. So this network then will go on to Mexico and Argentina in the next few months, and then back in the UK in the early 2019. So what we seek to do here is an enhanced local and international artistic professional development and opportunities for women working in the digital arts sector, encouraging mentorship, collaboration, and creation of new content through co-production between festivals. The other project that I wanted to share with you, it's called ASA, or ASA, Arte Sônica Amplificada. ASA in Portuguese also means wing. So this is a project that's been just launched in Brazil in partnership with a telecom company that has their own cultural center and foundation. So it's a pioneer initiative, focuses on women exploring new potential of music and creative technology. So what's the project? So 50 women from Rio will occupy the studio called Sonica and participate in an entire production chain of sound and music. The idea is then that this would expand in other states in Brazil, but this is the starting point. So British institutions like Lighthouse and She Said So will collaborate with the project and help women identify artists to enhance their areas of work and create a network of collaboration. So this is just, at the moment, they are just open, they have the open call for artists that want to participate on this. So I brought in a teaser, it's a 30-second teaser of the campaign that they're doing because it includes some of the stats that they've done in the state of Rio, and that will speak to something wider they might do nationwide. I'm trying to play the video, should be embedded on my presentation. Yeah, it's not. Usually on my Mac I have like a play button. I don't see anything moving here. No, that was passing on the next slide. So, well, I don't know. Oh, so there's no sound. I see. Oh, it's not showing on my screen. How do I do that? I hear something really like... Okay, should I start again? Okay, did you manage to read? Okay, so I don't need to play it again? Okay, so that's a campaign happening at the moment, and there's a wider campaign also. But so that gives you just a slight idea, and I think from the presentation that I saw earlier, it's pretty much in line with the challenges that the projects that we've seen so far. So again, that's the project from the British Council in Brazil at the moment. Then the last project I wanted to bring up something to do with also with gender identities, Outburst Americas. That's in line with the LGBTQ programs that we have with the Americas, and in this case it's Outburst. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the festival. Outburst Queer Art Festival, it takes place in Belfast in November, and it's been around since 12 years ago. And it became a reference for artists and queer LGBTI content in the UK. So right now we have this project of bringing Outburst through the Americas through network building, through delegate participation in regional queer arts events across the region. So by fostering collaborations emerging from a network, we have educational projects, artistic commissions and publications, including a queer art toolkit for change. It's an online publication focused on the aesthetics, frameworks, and politics involved in curating queer art. And they're also developing a digital platform of the network and with other resources and other projects. Yeah, so that's the basis for the Outburst Network is that it's basically something that is this is a grassroots movement where the directors for Outburst came over to the Americas with a meeting with queer artists or producers that would be interested in sending delegates back to Belfast. And then from there, we created what we call a steering group. And so this steering group at the moment is involved in developing this program. And we give Outburst full freedom to determine how this is going to be done. And so how do they come up with this, the steering group? Through these delegations that go to Belfast, we had an example here that I brought, because in the end, yes, we have over 5,000 people working for the British Council in 100 countries, but in the end, we're all people. And I think the strength that we have from the British Council is really relating to other people and not institutions or government. So I think I brought today this video of Simone Harris, because I think she embodies this, the fact that when you actually meet someone that brings this force to the project that you bring without this expectation, it actually catalyzes into something really strong. So Simone today is one of the pillars to what Outburst Americas is, just like we expect that through the development of this project in the next 2 years, the steering group will grow. So I just wanted to give an example of what someone can say in a 1-minute video that can maybe inspire an entire project. So I hope the sound works for this one, because it's not subtitled.
Home, for me, it's a metaphysical space. I am 7th generation Maroon from the line of Nanny of the Maroons, who is the only heroine, a national heroine of Jamaica. She was a warrior. She led an army to claim space and protect her tribe, her community of runaway slaves in the mountains of Jamaica. Many centuries later, I continue that tradition as 7 Blue Yang Kung Kung Pikibo, 7th generation Maroon child. I continue that tradition, and I claim space using art to express the love that I've found in my tribe, a community of people who, they don't judge me, they're always there for me, they support me, sometimes they discourage me for good reasons, and I've come to find home in them. So home for me is never a physical place.
Okay, so that's Simone speaking. That was a theme for Outburst a couple of years ago. What is home, for a queer person? And sometimes we have to remember the risk that it is to just come up front and say it. And so now we're even, planning on having an event happening in Jamaica, which is a huge risk, but it's something that British Council actually does well, is going where nobody wants to go. So that's the example. So my time is up. I'm going to leave this for the discussion in the panel. I can bring some of the points later. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sylvia. And now I'll call Nathalie Maillet from Conseil des Arts de Montréal. Thanks.
So, hi everyone. I will start to tell you what is the Montreal Arts Council. So, le Conseil des Arts de Montréal was founded in 1956. So it is over 60 years old. Its mission is to identify and support talent and to encourage excellence in professional artistic organization and collective that operate on the island of the city of Montreal, all of the islands. So Montreal is one big city called Montreal, and we have a borough called on the island, and we support all of the artists on the island. The Conseil des Arts recognizes excellence and innovation in the professional creation, production, and dissemination in the arts. We support around 500 different organizations in all of the sector, to movie, literature, theater, dance, digital arts. We have a budget annual for each year, 17 million for 2018. So since 2017, the Conseil has been focusing its efforts on the three new strategic priorities. First of all, inclusion, second, outreach, and culture of innovation. These priorities guide our choice of programs, partnership, and initiative. The Conseil plays an important leveraging role in Montreal due to its close ties with professional artists and creators who are the reason why we exist. For us at the Conseil, parity came into play through our commitment to inclusion. For the past 15 years, we have made the inclusion of cultural diverse artists a priority. 40% of the Montrealers come from different migrant background, so we felt something had to be done to redress the underrepresentation of diversity on Montreal art scene. In 2006, we developed and adopted a policy for the promotion of development of cultural diversity in the arts and a related action plan, and we create an organization called DAM, Diversité Artistique Montréal. This organization encouraged the recognition of and inclusion for all artists in Montreal. We also hired an employee to work exclusively with cultural diverse creators. And as early as 2009, inclusion became one of the priorities of our strategic plan. This initiative has given rise to a variety of programs, measures, and awards in support of inclusion, with new ones still being established to address more specific needs. One example is we pay internship program called Startup or Démarre. This program gives cultural diverse, newly arrived or first generation artists or cultural workers an immersive experience in Montreal's professional art scene. Démarre has been a great success because it feels a pressing need in our arts community. To give you an example, one of them called Singulier Pluriel is a theater company, and they just, the director, artistic director was, she wants to have somebody's work with her, and now she's retired and the people are come from another country. Now she's the new director, artistic director of this company. We've also created several diversity awards and are adding more each year. I believe all these initiatives have made the Conseil a leader in ensuring cultural diversity in the arts in Montreal. But we're not the only one. More and more organizations are taking up the cause, which is really good news. The Conseil is also working hard to promote a better understanding of these challenges and to raise awareness among institutions, politicians, and organizations. And we've tried to do is integrate our cultural diversity initiative across the board in all of our programs and all of our arts disciplines. Our action must continue to adapt to the reality of all artists in Montreal and in different organizations. And they must also reflect the diverse practices in Montreal-based creators. It is important about the practices because we just realized that a lot of people come from different, they have different background and they are come from different diversity. And because of that, their practice are less for the Montrealers or just growing up in Montreal, what it looks like is so different, and so all of the Arts Council give grant with the pairs, so they evaluate, and we just realized that we have to support different visual arts, different thing, not only one aesthetic. So we learned from experience that change can only be brought about in organization. It's everyone, but everyone believe it and knows and understand the reason why we have to do. And this is true for all levels of the organization. Our experience also showed us that we still had a long way to go in terms of representativeness, inclusion, and equity. I'm thinking here a group of that still underrepresented in our organization in Montreal. The importance to introducing concrete measures to promote Indigenous artists, Anglophone, because you understand in Montreal, most of the people are French, so we have to support all of the minority, Anglophone, emerging artists, and of course, parity. I think I have a... Okay, I will wait. So what I want to talk to you, it's a picture that I'm sure that you saw many times on Facebook, but for us, everything is there. So while the need to ensure gender parity may have seemed self-evident for years, it is obvious that the matter is far from settled. For us, gender parity means ensuring an equal place of the art scene for artists who identify as female or male. The topic has long been debated, but disparity remains, and the numbers are not there to prove it. For example, we know that women are still a minority in leadership position. They occupy only 14% decision-making in Canada and only 17% in Quebec. So we are far from heaven on that score. At the Conseil, the issue of parity come later, around 4 years ago. I think about the same time as the mobilization of the cultural community. And I have to say that the NFB and Telefilm are leaders in this regard. And we have to learn a lot about what they are doing now. As a public institution, there is one imperative we all share. We must always be on the lookout, keeping watch like guard dogs to make sure that we represent our city entire population. That's our role, to promote and defend the values of cohesion and equity in our society, and the relevance of our own organization depend on it. And I'll always repeat it, the relevance of our own organizations depend on it. But within the Conseil team, the issue of parity takes on a somewhat different slant because the women outnumbered the men. So what is our response about that? Affirmative action with the hiring of a man for Director of Strategic Initiative in 2014. We want our team to be as diversified as possible because we see diversity as an asset. So for us, equity is mean everywhere. For too much women, we need more men and all of this. And in 2015, we have a revision to an internal management bylaws. And now we have, for all of our committee governance, different committee, we are, with the people who are working at the Conseil and different members, we are around 100 people. So an equal representation of men and women and include individuals from different cultural background and different generation. Our evaluation committee play a very important role, being largely responsible for recommending which organization and collective receive funds. So likewise, there's an equal representation on our board of directors. So should we have mandatory quota? We're thinking about it, but one thing is certain, we are in favor of affirmative action. In summary, we believe that art and culture are vehicles from transmission and emancipation in our society. Accordingly, our new strategic plan for 2018 to 2020 gives prominence to the issue of inclusion, representativeness, and equity. As our work on cultural diversity advanced, we were able to identify underrepresented groups. We intend to continue ensuring their fullest possible inclusion. Last spring, the Conseil established an Indigenous Arts Committee with Hannah Klaus. She's an artist. She's Mohawk and she's a visual artist. And in September, we will be welcoming an artist in visual too, Mylène Gay, as project officer for Indigenous Arts. Similarly, we recently created an in-house committee for thinking about measures and incentives to support parity around 2020. And more recently, the Conseil has joined force with MUTEC for Keychange project. So in conclusion, I'm closing to let's build an inclusive city where the creative spirit runs deep and free. The city is already buzzing with the energy of our artists, but our work isn't finished yet. We must act in unison to achieve this goal. Let's all of us, public institution, association, artists, cultural community believe it and coming to this change. We have the power to do it, so let's us that power. The time is now. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Nathalie. And now I'll call Evelyn Cream from Factor. So this will be the last panel, the last presentation, and then we'll go to the discussion part.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any artists, people in here who've received Factor grants? We've got a few. Okay. I'm first going to start talking about Factor, give a bit of background, and then, excuse me, some of the work we are doing. Hold on, before I lose my voice. So Factor is a, I understand. We are a public-private partnership that supports Canadian sound recordings and getting the music out there, and the companies that support the sound recordings. We were actually started in 1982 by the radio industry, the commercial radio industry, in partnership with the Canadian independent music industry. This started because this was the early days of CanCon regulations, and radio was finding they were not getting enough songs that they could play on the radio. So they partnered with the independent industry, created Factor, and gave Factor $200,000 to start off. Now we have a much larger budget. So today our funding comes from two sources. The radio people still give us money every year, and also the Canadian Music Fund from the Department of Heritage gives us a chunk of cash as well. We fund recordings and everything to do with the marketing of the recordings, the tours to help support those recordings. The tours are domestic and international. We also help with some of the labels and managers with their business travel, and we also fund conferences like this one. Showcases for export, so if anybody wants to do a showcase in, say, South by Southwest, an organization, we will help fund that organization as long as it's multiple copyright holders. Award shows like the Junos and a bunch of other stuff. The people who actually get the money are the artists, by far the artists the most, but also the managers, companies, publishers, distributors that support the artists, and then the conferences, music industry associations, award shows, and some festivals as well. Here is a sample of the artists, the Juno winners that were funded, that we funded. Yes, that Daniel Caesar album was actually a Factor funded recording. So we fund all kinds of genres, and just a little bit of everything. In total of our last fiscal year, we gave out over $18.5 million. Most of it to the artists, but and music companies as well. So there's some stats, a lot of recordings. The tour and showcase numbers reflects domestic and international tour supports, and then some music videos as well. We have 3 programs. The first one is the New Musical Works, which is really artist focused, and then the labels and publishers and managers that help support them. Each program has a level criteria in order to get into it, except for 2. The jury sound recording and the artist development program are selected by juries. So anybody, almost anybody can apply. I said all genres, and the jury process is really important to us because we have to make sure the people on the jury are experts in the style of music and reflect the community of the artist who's there. And then the top scorers get some money from us. The other programs are the collective initiatives, which funds anything that can benefit multiple copyright holders. So conferences, the award shows, the showcases we talked about, digital marketing initiatives across promoting multiple artists. and artists from official language minority communities. And then we have a sponsorship program which kind of is designed to help smaller projects that really don't fit into any of the other programs. And then sometimes it's like if you're a new conference, you're not going to get funding through collective initiatives, but we can help give you some funding through sponsorship to start and then build up the conference so you can get up to collective initiatives. So when I read the panel description, and it says a line about institutions being slow to change, I went, guilty. We only really started the discussion on this about 3 years ago and started making some changes 2 years ago. I'm going to explain why it can take so long to make these changes. We have a lot of stakeholders that are involved in making significant changes to what we do. So Factor is governed by a board of directors, which makes up from the radio people and the music industry, labels managers, publishers, artist representative. The board of directors, 5 of the 11 are women. We have 1 Indigenous and 1 visible minority. The board of directors has various communities, so I've just listed 2 of them. One is the program review committee, so when we do make some changes, it starts there. The discussion starts there. And then earlier this year, we started an equity committee. So the members in that are 2 women, Indigenous person, and then somebody who has a lot of experience with a relative who has disability. So this is still a new process for us. We also, because we administer funding from the Department of Heritage, we also have agreement with them and have to consult them when we need to make some significant changes to our policies and programs. We are, and then we're also a sister company to Music Action. So Music Action looks after everything Francophone for music, we look after everything else. So if we're going to make a change, we want to make sure they're in line with it as well. And then we also have a national advisory board, which includes people, music associations from across the country. So a lot of people have opinion in what we do. So with that, when we started this process, we've always collected data based on genre. What kind of music are you doing? And where do you live? What province are you from? We never collected any data on gender or anything else until 2 years ago. Because we had to start, like, how many women applications do we fund? Or many artists? We didn't know. So, yes, so we started this 2 years ago asking the question. Our database is tens of thousands of people for artists and administrators and the managers and the labels. So anybody new gets asked questions about their gender, are you Indigenous, and are you visible minority? If you're already in the system, you log in, you're prompted to go ask to answer those questions. However, you can opt out. And also, if you haven't logged into our system for 2 years, we don't have that information. But we're moving in towards that direction, and we're also going to be asking more questions that we're working on right now. For a for-profit company, we ask who the shareholders are, and then within that information, we tell you the gender of that person, all the other information. For a not-for-profit company with the board of directors, we have not been asking that information yet because we have to change new systems, so we're going to start doing that as well. So within a short period of time, we can tell you, which companies have a board of directors that's half women, 25% women, all women, and the same for companies that are owned. So we got the stats. What are we doing now? What we also started doing 2 years ago, we actually hired an outreach person. And they are also responsible for doing the sponsorship. So their job is to connect with communities that either never heard of us or they're not happy with our programs, and we have asked why. It's all about communication and talking. What can we do better that'll make it easier for you to apply for us? Or what changes do we have to do? So for example, one change we did was for Indigenous people in far north, like really far away, they want to go South by Southwest, they can apply for our showcase grant. That grant has limited funds for travel. But if you're going from the far north, your travel costs can be double sometimes. So we initiated a program to, if you live, I think it's 300 kilometers away from a major airport, we'll give you additional funding for those travel costs. And that came out through discussions with various people. And then combining the outreach with sponsorship means as he's connecting with various people and he finds some really cool programs, we can offer some sponsorship funds with it because the criteria is a little bit less stringent to get there. We hired a diversity and inclusion consultant. We're going to go down this road. We need an expert to help guide us. So she's reviewed everything. She reports to the board of directors and has given us a set of recommendations that we're in the process of implementing right now. We've created Factor 101 sessions aimed specifically for certain groups. And how this started was, the reggae community came to us. They were organizing a showcase that we were funding in Jamaica. And the Canadian who was organizing it said, okay, well, the artists need to make sure they apply for the showcase grant. Most of them they just didn't know how to do it or what. So we had them all come in with their laptops and we walked through the whole process, how to create the profile, how to create the application. Make sure when you go there, you get your receipts so we can claim the rest of the funding at the end. On Women's Day, International Women's Day in March, we did a panel, we created a panel on grants for women in hip-hop industry and created a networking event out of that. And we're going to be doing something with the Indigenous community, again, Factor 101, helping people work through our system, because I met our computer system's really complicated. Does anybody guys know? Pardon? Okay. We're doing some equity training for managers. We're developing a diversity policy for the entire company. Our jury supervisor and assistant are constantly looking for women, Indigenous people, visible minorities, and if you have 5 years experience as an artist or in the business, come to me. We're always looking for new jurors. And our regional coordinators next year they're right across the country. They will be mandated to do some work within the various communities so we connect with them. Through the Collective Initiatives program, very soon, we've got some people here, you're going to have to submit a diversity policy with your application. We want to know what you're doing and how does that project fit in with that policy. In sponsorship, we increased our budget by additional $100,000 with a goal to fund more projects that will help benefit women and diverse communities. And our goal between these two is really to fund the organizations who can make a difference within the community, to help build the skills, the education they need to make long-term sustainable change. Like, to me, that's what it's all about, is creating the next leaders. 5 years down the road can create a next conference and stuff like that. These are just some of the projects that we are funded, including today. There's Indigenous stuff, there's variety of stuff. Sponsorship, a lot of female focused stuff there on it. And then lastly, what do we do in the next 6 months? More Factor 101 events, more outreach to connect with the communities and hear what they have to say, listen to them. The company diversity policy will be done. The applicants for collective initiatives will be submitting their policies. And just about everything else and more stats. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Evelyn. You can stay with us, and I'm going to call back the other 4 people who presented, so we can start the conversation. And don't forget, if you have any questions, just raise your hand. And I have one more microphone. Okay. So I think you each have a microphone in front of you. Maybe I'm going to start by asking, Evelyn, you ended the presentations with a big part of what you said was about outreach. And I think that's something that's very interesting because you can build as many policies and and try to give out as many grants as you want, but if the people that you're trying to target don't come to you, how do you do that? And I know, Louis Richard, you also spoke about that, and I'd like to hear, from each one of you about how do you go about it? How do you bring the people that are used to work outside of the system into that system?
It's really about networking and finding the right person who can contact one person, who will lead them to another person, then will lead them to another person, and we seem to find the people. Because we are a national organization, lucky that we do have really some amazing contacts across the country, but it's just like that one step at a time, just finding one lead to another, and then be able to, I think key thing is be able to listen to them, because some of them are really pissed off, and I understand why. So what can we do to make it better for them? Sometimes as simple as communicating what we can do, because sometimes we can't do everything that they need. Like, oh no, we can't get receipts. Like in Jamaica, they don't do receipts. So, but we cannot give out the government's money without receipts.
Right.
So, so it's just educating and then helping them and through the various processes, and it's just like one person at a time. And word spreads as you start doing one project that works really well, one group, and they just leads to another and another.
Right.
Yeah, for us, it's one person at a time is the key thing, I think. We've discussed a little about it, but I don't recall the exact source, but the person who shared that with me is a perfect source. But when you have to make a selection, or if you decide to go at a funding, push forward a project, and there's an opportunity for financing, usually a woman needs to be 100% sure she has all the credentials, all the skills to apply to. A guy needs 60%. So this is something very important to understand, and what it implies for me, for instance, as a producer, is not only do you have to outreach with all sorts of communication channels, but you have to sit with the person and convince that person that it's okay if it's 60%. Go at it, and we'll manage to bring you with the team, with every resource that's available to make it happen, and that's about it. So like it's time consuming, but you need to do it if you want to have results.
Right. Jessica? Oh, and then Nathalie. Jessica, then Nathalie.
I was just going to say, I feel like the Women Make Music Fund was kind of, in a way, doing that. It's not outreach in terms of actively going out there, but it's creating a new space, a new opportunity for people who maybe wouldn't have felt like they could apply otherwise. So that was in response. I think the Factor 101 sessions are really, that's an incredible idea, and that's something that I genuinely feel like I'll take back, because that is a huge barrier, and that's so often a massive thing. Not everyone understands these forms, these opportunities, exactly what you're looking for from it. And that is one of the biggest barriers to interacting with organizations like ours. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Props to you guys for that.
Nathalie, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, just to say that, yes, for sure that our committee and the governance of the Conseil is very diverse. People come from different backgrounds and different community. But we changed last 10 years ago how we work. We don't wait that the people are coming to us. Mm-hmm. We just have to go
get
see
them.
them and get them. So we have a project manager is specific for cultural diversity, and everybody, the people are just arrived in Montreal. The first people, if they are artists, artistic company. Artists, they are coming at the Montreal Arts Council, and they share with her what experience, and she helping the people to see, okay, you have to go to see this organization in music or in theater, and she's really at the center of to be sure that the network of these people. And we always say that we don't have, we cannot lose talent in Montreal. So we have to keep all of the people who just choose to come to Montreal. So, but we have to change how we work. It's really important. Before, like 5 years ago, we support 300 organizations, now it's 500. And most of them are really different from what we support before. But we have Marie-Michel here, she's working with the Conseil. She can tell you that we work differently. She's going to see the people from different background and different from cultural diversity, and to show how they work and what can we do for them. Not just to wait and they're gonna apply, no, because it will be always the same with the same network, with same aesthetic, with the same, so we have to change.
Right.
I just
Sylvia?
wanted to, add for the British Council, I think we are privileged to have then what we call a mothership. We have the senior advisors in the UK that are divided by art forms. So we work with 8 different art forms. So anything from literature, music, theater, film, creative economy, architecture, design, and fashion. So we can always go back to them. They have the UK partners. We are nothing without our partners. And so that speeds up a lot about, these one-to-one connections. We have like a web of networking throughout the Americas that we can reach out quickly based on these art forms. And also some support in terms of the work we do in cultural skills and cultural development and cultural heritage. So we have overlapping specialties within the British Council that would give us a better panorama of who we can work with, what the partners are available, and so it really facilitates coming from the UK and from the Americas, feeding back to that network.
Right. And I wanted to go back to something you said, Jessica, about people asking you, well, why don't you do 50-50 right now? And I think it's something that came up when we spoke before the panel about setting realistic goals for each and different institution and organization, and how that actually helps achieve lasting change instead of just doing something kind of aesthetic for 1 year and then going back to your old ways. So I wanted to hear a bit more about, how do you set different goals for different people, organizations, institutions?
That's a difficult question. Obviously, we haven't set different goals. We've just set one which has been developed amongst a group of people who all agreed. And it's pretty fascinating because some of them had already reached 50-50, and it's not about, it's about making sure it's inclusive, making sure the opportunity is there for everyone to participate in it. Because if it was 1 year or 2 years, I feel like you could either get flash in the pan, like people just, okay, this year, let's do it, or you'd end up with people who only felt like they could achieve it in that time, realistically doing it. So, yeah, we've only set one goal, but we've made sure that it's an inclusive goal and developed it with a range of people, I guess.
Right, and Richard, you were talking about the fact that, the NFB put this measure out that, it's going to be 50-50 by, yeah, exactly, 2019. But as you were saying, the interactive studio works differently. And, you outsource a bit of your part of your projects and et cetera. So how does it work? How do you apply those goals to your division, let's put it that way, or your department?
Yeah, so the way they structured it at the NFB is that, so the first 50% is by 8 different creative categories. There's another 50% goal that is with like 50% of the overall spending. And this is really key. Because if you go to the first 50%, you have 8, so you have the director who gets the more money, then you go down all the way to the different departments. So you have editing, DOP, music, screenwriting, and stuff like that. And in the interactive reality, it doesn't work in the same sense. Usually it's a team because you need to master 3 skills. You need the techno skills, which is absent from those 8 categories in the film industry, because there's the technical department handling that. And if you go into the technical department, then the gender balance is kind of different. But they don't have an influence in key decision making most of the time. The editor will take the decision, or the music composer. In the field of interactive, or in music also, when it's largely influenced by the technology you choose to use, some of those key decisions that will have a direct impact on the output of a creative project have to take into condition the fact that it's an object that is most of the time connected. Like, interactive means connected for like almost all our project. So you need to go with the IT people, the back-end people, the front-end people, the design people, and so we had to, we're not done yet trying to figure out which is the best way and which are the best skill set to have influence on in regards towards agency and the rest of the digital creative industry, we call them most of the time. But definitely, like, the key roles that are the same as in filmmaking, we're just mirroring it. But we have to figure out a way to go as deep as IT people or like server people and stuff like that, because we feel they have a key role in. This is our understanding of what digital creation means. So this is the kind of difference, the key difference, I would say.
Right. And still speaking of goals, don't hesitate if you have questions. Any questions? No, not for now. Okay. So I just wanted to go back to you, Sylvia, and maybe talk about how this project, Keychange, the Keychange initiative, how it went from being kind of you were telling me, a big project, you know, with a lot of stuff in it. And I think, Jessica, you touched on that also. And it kind of evolved and changed to make sure that it was put into place and that it became something public and that you were able to put it together, even if you didn't necessarily get the funding or the exact things that you wanted to, but it was important to put this project out and soon. So I wanted to hear more about how you changed things.
Sure. And just as a reminder, this is something that was started here in Canada with Sada, with the art manager here in Canada. So I'm kind of speaking on her behalf, but not quite, because I wasn't involved during the beginning of the process, so I don't want to take ownership of this. But from the experience that I have with Amplify, it was something that I think by principle what we do with the British Council is we aim high. We always start, you know, with the highest level, what we want to do. So I think that's what Sada strives. You know, she had this big ambition for this project, and hear about Keychange, she jumped right at it, at the opportunity. So of course, there's only so much funding you can have for a project this ambitious from the get-go. So you can apply for additional funding. Maybe you don't get the full extent of the money that you wanted, but we were pretty smart at connecting with the region. So what you did is you reached out to Mexico, reached out to Argentina. So if you don't have, you know, the cash to do it, at least you have the connections, you have the groundwork already laid out for you to be able to strengthen your offer with the network that you already have available. So I think the expectation for this, for Amplify, is that in the following year or a couple of years from now, that we can increase the participation on it, add to the program as it goes, so we just don't give up. We know that we can start with, like, even if it's seed funding, and then in the future we can strengthen it, and always counting on the network, because we know the network's effort to back us up.
Right. And I think that's something that's also key, you know, to make sure that even if it's baby steps, let's call it like that, but that you build on it, and then that it gets bigger and bigger. And I wanted to talk a bit also here about the impact, like what impact does it have? And you know, when you have a pushback on, let's say, a 50-50 policy, you know, people say, oh, what does it bring to me? It's going to cost more money. Or how do I get a lineup that's 50-50 on a music festival? It doesn't work for me personally, blah, blah, blah. What do you give as a reason? What's the impact that having gender equity is bringing to, you know, different festivals, events, or institutions? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, there's plenty of evidence that economically diversity is successful. So that's probably the first thing. I think people are often very specific in like, oh, I can't book a 50-50 lineup because there's just not enough women or whatever. Like they always come up with a next level specific reason. And I feel like, I mean, if you look at the FAQ page on the Keychange website, you'll see our reasoning and our argument against each individual element, because there are so many people who can come up with the wildest excuses and the weirdest reasons why they could never do this. And at the end of the day, they just have to want to do it to be able to do it. There's these, I mean, especially with something like Keychange, where it's not about headliners, it's not about anything huge. It's about trying to make a change over 5 years. It's not even really about the 50-50. It's not really about making that. It's about having it in your mind that you want to contribute change. That's it.
Well, you look like you wanted to say something.
Yeah. Well, two things. From my personal experience trying to recruit like a créatrice or a woman creator, often you have to do everything you just said, but often you have to convince that this is their place. I've worked with a senior woman creator, having to convince them to accept this panel or to accept this contract, or because we tend to develop a close relation to the creators we work with, and usually we nourish that relation. So and I've never had that kind of relation with any male creator I've worked with. So this is, to me, this is key. Yeah. So you have to like communicate in all different ways possible that no, it's like just go at it. And if it doesn't work, well, the next time it will. So this is like a very important discourse. The second thing is really to whoops, sorry, my brain just slipped. No, anyway, yeah.
I can say something about it. I think he's really right that we have to make, I would just observe that first because I'm a woman, but from minority, all of whatever, what kind it is, but we are, for women, we all know that if the door are not open, sometimes we are shy to just go and talk. And I think we have to, for women now, but for diversity, we have to share that all of the doors are open. We just have to go and open the door. So we don't have to, like you said, you're right. It's always like this. We all know that if you know for an application, we know that if we have a new director for something, the men have half of competence and for everything, the quality to apply and say, yes, I'm good to do it. And for the woman, we need to have 80%. If we don't have 80%, we say, oh, I'm not sure, maybe I don't have everything. So we have to, I think we are a moment, the people want to open, the men want to, that we go there. So, but we have to take the places for that.
And I found my thought.
You
the
found your
second
thought?
thing
Good.
is that's totally true. And the next level, it's not only, and I think I gave the example during my presentation. It's not only do you have to occupy with your skills, but with your sensibility and your regards to the world. So was the example we gave, like when we work with younger people, it's changing, I hope. I hope I'm right. But it's changing in a very good way, where suddenly you don't have to, like, they own the space. Like skills-wise, they own the space. But as far as, yeah, I want to talk about that. No, don't talk about that. Like, that's the second level of, like, the clitoris example project. Like, they had they're totally allowed to choose the project they want to, but we had to push them because that was the best thing amongst 5 other things.
Right.
But they were like, kind of, nah, the people are going to judge us and stuff like, no, just go ahead, it's the best project. Just do the best thing.
Just do it.
So this is like another level also.
We have, I think, 1 minute left, so is there a question from the room? Yes. First question, you, in the front. Yes. Oh, there's a microphone coming to you.
My question is to each of you as representatives from institutions is about risk. As an artist, my background was in experimental music communities. I ran a community called Weird Canada for a very long time. In the last 4 years, I've been making experimental video games and interactive media. And for both of these journeys, the biggest achievements have come through risk. And I'm curious about how you relate to risk as institutions. Do you encourage it? I find it's something that women especially are terrified of. If I can make a generalization, and I'm curious about that.
That's a very good question.
Yeah, well, you're totally right. I feel as a producer, one of my key role is to create the context where risk can happen. Within the NFB, it's part of the history from 1939 up to our days. But it's never an easy task to protect the creative team to go as far as possible into taking the risk. Yeah, but and it's especially true regards to what we were just talking about when working. You have to push.
Sylvia?
Yeah, I guess I would start asking, what do you mean by risk? You mean artistically speaking, like exploring and, okay. So yeah, we are all about that. We actually do encourage that in particular projects that we have. So when we talk about risk, we're talking about maybe if you're, depending on what your subject is, then we have to be aware of where is it that you're taking this risk, because sometimes it could be life-threatening in some cases, or depending on the environment that you live, it means something else. But in terms of exploring and looking for different ideas within your art, then it's something that we strive for. We make sure that this is part of the work that we're involved with. We actually are very good at getting into those places where nobody goes. So I think if you look hard, you'll see that we're not worried about, being profitable or popular or having the highest hits on internet. It's something that we want to make sure that we have these artists working on what they should be working, so that we can then expand this and enable the spaces and safe spaces for them to do that.
We'll go to Jessica and then Nathalie.
Well, yeah, I feel like we all work to take away some elements of risk, whether that's financial or, well, I mean, predominantly financial. We're mostly funders. So in order for other risks to flourish and have the opportunity to do that, where otherwise that might not have been possible. Yeah, I think that's what we all do in some way.
Just to say that for us, because we are the smaller of the Arts Council, Montreal, Quebec, and after Canada, we always take risks. It's our job to take a chance to give the first grant. Just to tell you, we were the first one to support MUTEC 20 years ago. So we are proud.
Evelyn, and then we'll go back to you, Louis Richard.
As going to two hats on, as the artist, if you apply through our jury sound recording, you're judged by your peers, and they're the ones who, like, you can do whatever you want to do. They're the ones who are going to say, yes, we think this works, it's not. And it's people, artists in the industry, who would be it's about calculated risk. I get a lot of, because I run the Collective Initiatives program, with some really interesting ideas come through, and some of them are like brilliant, so good, but the people don't have the experience in the music industry to run it. So I said, go find your partner. But it's taking risk is what it is, how you succeed in life. And yes, it might not work always, but that's what we need to do. And I think we definitely recognize that.
Richard, you want
Well,
to add?
if I think it was your presentation where you have like life and quality of life, or
work-life balance.
Work-life balance. So to me, that's the extent of risk when you talk about creation. It's not only the creator getting its financing and getting its right creative context, but it's all the environment aside. Like if you work with a woman that's 35 and has children, usually you have, this is part of the context. So risk also means you want to go this far, but you know, time-wise, it's going to have an impact elsewhere in your life. And I think this is the deep cultural change that needs to happen within those, like to allow this time to take its place. And this is tough because usually it goes back to business requirements or financing requirements. So this is kind of the deep challenge is really, so gender equality, that's what it means also. And I'm giving the example of a woman with this child, but it could be the other way around. Nowadays it's part of the values of most of the people we work with. They want to have that balance. I found it very interesting.
Right. Evelyn, you want to add to the add-on?
There's a particular record company who signs a lot of female artists who have children, and the label management will say they've become experts on how to tour with children, babies and children. It doesn't stop. It might slow you down for a couple months, but it doesn't stop anymore.
So do we have one last question from the room? If not, we'll wrap it up unless you guys want to add something to this discussion. No? Okay, so I'll give the microphone back to Patty. Thank you very much to each and one of you.
So yes, thank you everyone for being here today, and there's more tomorrow, and it's going to be more of a show and tell of digital arts in the morning. So Indigenous artist Skawanati is going to dig into her practice in cyberspace, and then we'll have some presentations from 3 of the women artists who are part of the Keychange Amplify project, and it will be quite lively and animated. And then we're going to move into a keynote from Tara Rogers after lunch, and then a panel of people who do events who are already doing them right. So thanks a lot.